Hi-ho, neighborinos. It's Bill Whittle here with the Stratosphere Lounge, episode number 119, and that's getting to be near a kind of a milestone, which would be 120. It's not much of a milestone. It's kind of a sad open. I kind of want to do it all over again. How's everybody doing? Lots to talk about today. I have to do a relatively short show, hour and a half maybe, tonight. But there's a heck of a show here. Where do we start? This has been really the most incredible couple weeks that I've ever had. And before I go any further, I'm going to just do one thing. I want to adjust these lights. We do our new show, Right Angle, which I'll talk about in a minute. And I think all of my video looks a little bit, warm. I blew it out a little bit. See how it looks as a test for tomorrow. Yeah, let's give that a whirl. Okay. There are some interesting things to talk about. I think I'll probably just open the show, by the way, the same way I close most of the others. And I'm speaking for myself here and also for Carla, our operations manager, who's behind that blue wall there. She's about to dash out. Probably going to put a bag over. There she goes. There's been a sighting. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye. I want to start by doing what I usually do to close, and that is I just have to thank everybody because we actually did it. I mean, we actually just did it. When PJTV told us that they were closing their doors, we moved pretty fast. Steve, Scott, and I, we got on the phone and decided we wanted to keep the show alive. We wanted to keep as much of that stuff as we could keep going. And then basically, with their help, I pushed as hard as I've ever pushed anything in my life. I mean, we just really went hard at it and leaned on people because it really was make it or break it time there. But I just want to start the show by thanking everybody because it's not make it or break it anymore. It's make it. It's just make it. We got a big number of members come over from PJTV. The last week or so, in terms of the membership, has been unbelievable. And I mean this when I say this. I've had this business of my own now, outside of Declaration Entertainment. I've had this probably almost 3 years, I want to say. And this last weekend was the first time in that almost 3 years that I felt like this is going to be a success. I know that sounds hard to believe, but it's true. I didn't even realize it until right Saturday or Sunday when we passed that magical point where we picked up enough new members to make up for the lost revenue at PJTV. And we've done considerably better than that. Cheryl wants to know if we made 1,000 new members. We did. We made more than that, and more are coming in every day. So here's what that means in terms of yours truly and all the rest of it. First of all, again, I cannot thank you enough. I know many people I'd see every now and then. I'll see somebody say, "I'm going to join as soon as I get my retirement check and stuff," and it's really so moving. And my opinion used to be no, don't. But now it's not. Now it's like, no, we're in real trouble out there. And so the great news is that after years and years of kind of beating around the bush in terms of membership, we leaned really hard. Steve and Scott leaned really hard, and we got enough members to not only keep me doing my show here and keep these doors open for Firewall and all the rest of our members only show, but we actually got enough members to keep Steve and Scott in the game. Now, I'd love to tell you that we've got enough and we can relax, but the fact of the matter is we're still not able to do for Steve and Scott what we'd like to do salary-wise, but at least we're not going into... At least now, Right Angle's not cost... it used to make me money. I used to get money from PJTV, and we're now at the point where it's not costing me anything. So if you've thought about joining and you still can, it will go a long way, and we're going to make it count. But with that said, I could not be more grateful or happy or pleased. And as I said, I was somewhere around Saturday, we passed that number. We passed the number of members that we needed to make up the lost revenue. And from that point, I just exhaled probably for the first time in 3 years. I had no idea that I was that tense about it until we passed it. And it wasn't so much even the losing the PJTV money. I'm just tense about money anyway. And I'm one of these wandering minstrels. I spent pretty much my entire life out there as a. Oh my gosh. Oh, here we go. We get the operations manager. By the way, this would be a perfect opportunity. She's not going to stop unless she wants to. Wave. Come say hi. Come say hi. That's her hi. That's Carla, our operations manager, who forgot her cell phone. About the only thing she forgets. This would not happen without her. None of this could have happened without her. She came in and simply made it happen. Her husband did all kinds of great work for us. We've got she's just the whole thing. I mean, she's the best customer service person I've ever seen. There she is, gone again. But it's a huge part of it, and she works like a dog here. It's just the two of us, by and large, are picking up a little bit of extra help. So I'm very, very grateful. Very, 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 very grateful. And we'd like to keep them coming because we still haven't gotten to where we need to be, but we don't have to worry about closing the doors, and we don't have to worry about giving up Right Angle. So let me talk about that just for a minute or two. We're still trying to tweak things. We found a better way to do a little higher quality recording. I looked at the shows we did on Tuesday. We shoot them on Tuesday. At the same time, we always shot Trifecta. And my camera looks a little red. In fact, I'm going to blue it out a little more here, because what I see on my monitors here is not what comes out on YouTube. In any event, I don't know if it's been noticeable to you guys, but we are having so much more fun doing Right Angle than we did doing Trifecta. And we had a blast doing Trifecta. The connection's quicker. We don't have to worry about all the chroma keying and all the rest of that stuff. So I don't like that blue. We basically are having a blast because there was pretty much a second delay back in the PJTV days, and it was hard to interact like that. But we're just much looser. I mean, the show I cut tonight, I just put it up. It'll be up on the Facebook page tomorrow. Steve Green's show about Trump versus Clinton. And I mean, we're just belly laughing, just really, really just hilarious. So we're having a lot of fun with that. And I'm speaking for Steve and Scott here when I tell you, again, not only thanks for me, because thanks for me, but this was their income too. You know, this was their rent and everything else. And we all three want to thank you very much. We're going to be talking about, I have a little conversation with Zoe. Zoe's going to keep doing what he's doing. He's going to go back to his basement, where I thought he was much more effective against that brick wall, frankly. We've been in discussions with Andrew, who's working for Jeremy over at Daily Wire. He's doing a daily podcast. We'd like to bring the Clave Whittle show back, but we don't have the money to do that right now. But, and a couple people are saying that they enjoyed Right Angle more. Right Angle's it's a better show. I do not want to say a bad word about PJTV, and not because it's unprofessional. It's because I have such affection for them, and I have such gratitude for the stuff they did. But yeah, I think the opening to Right Angle is far better than anything we did there. I think it's far better, and I think it's much hipper and looser. And I just love the show. And Steve Green and Scott Ott are as grateful as I am for all of you who came over and kept us not only doing the show, but kept us in our houses to the degree that we've been doing that. So right now we're just trying to keep the membership numbers coming for a little while, and then we'll back off a little bit. If we have a little more of a push, we can probably do Clave Whittle and a couple of other things, in terms of paying Steve and Scott a little more. They're not going to make what they were making back in the day. But this is the other thing, too, I just want to say before I move on Right Angle. We all agreed to work for free for the first month. I think we're in week 3 now. We all agreed to work for free for the first month, but once we got to last weekend, I said, we're going to pay you something. So we paid them, probably a quarter of a third of what they were getting before, but we paid them for the first, we paid them, not me, all of us together. Got to pay them, and they were about as happy as I was. It's a terrible shame to lose combat troops at this time in the big idea war. especially to things like supply problems. It's one thing if somebody like Andrew Breitbart is out of the fight because he has a heart attack and dies, but the idea of sidelining people like Scott and Steve and Zoe and the rest of them right in the middle of this fight was really the most disturbing part of it. And I certainly think if we can just keep it up just a little bit longer, we'll be able to bring pretty much all of those guys back. And also, since we do have a lot of fun stuff to talk about, I think there's a very good chance that we're going to be doing an entire set of videos and speaking engagements to go out and do nothing but colleges and millennials. I've done a college and a high school lately. I've learned an awful lot about that, and I don't know if I will. I'm not going to talk about that now. Somebody, Robraz in the live comment section just said podcast. Now, what we had to scramble to get Right Angle up. I had to get all the graphics done. We had to figure out how to do it. And now that the show is up, we're still improving the image quality, but we're getting there. Hopefully next week we're going to start getting a lot more savvy with our social media, a lot more savvy, because up until now I've just kind of seen myself as a supplier, and I'm kind of my own product. But since the PJTV thing happened, and since we got the kind of support that we did get from all of you fine people out there, we suddenly look at now I'm not just Bill Whittle anymore. Now it's now it's a chance to do a channel. It's a chance to do a channel and and actually, produce some content. So, yeah, we're really, really, really excited. I couldn't be more happy. I could be more happy to get a few more members in, but we passed the point of no return, and it's an actual business now. So, it's been great. And Steve and Scott, as I said, agreed to work for free. Then we gave them a raise, and now we're going to continue to pay them more as the membership goes up. They're still only getting probably a third of what they were getting before, but at least they're getting something, and that's all due to you. So I can't thank you enough for that. I got some great questions today. I'd love to talk about all of those. I got the feeling there was one more thing I needed to talk about. Planes in the shop, having its condition inspection. I've got a couple of videos that I haven't posted separately, and I'm going to do that. I've just been so busy and worried and stuff, and now I'm actually starting to have a little free time. But I got new landing lights in there. I got a new engine monitor in there. That's really important. On my Long Easy, I've got a little digital. Well, it's not little, but it's it's probably this big, and it's older. Plane. It's probably from the 90s, I guess, early 90s, and the you couldn't, since it's nothing but digital readouts. You couldn't just glance down and see whether a value like RPM forget RPM, oil pressure, oil temperature, whether they were, you couldn't tell visually whether or not they're inside the bars that you want them to be in. You have to think about the number and then try to remember what the number is. This new engine monitor's got everything with, it's electronic display, obviously, but there's little analog dials, and it's like, here's the green arc, here's the yellows on the outside, here's the reds, and if any of these numbers start to go into the red, then there's a flashing light that tells you your cylinder heads are too hot or your oil pressure's too low or whatever. So that's going in, and we're getting better brakes because braking is a nice thing to be able to do in an airplane, I've noticed. So anyway, that's the latest with that. We'll hope to get the plane back on Friday or Monday. And then in probably first week in June, I'm going to bring my friend down who's a real top Long Easy guy. We're going to do the measurements for the canopy, and then we'll send that out to the guy in Fort Lauderdale who does the canopy, and hopefully we'll be able to put the new canopy on during the 4th of July trip. Start it up there, fly it up on the 4th of July, and then I'll come back commercial, and then I'll pick up the plane when it's ready. But as usual, I digress. We've had people asking about podcasts. We've had people asking about RSS feeds. We've had people asking about Reddit. We've had all kinds of things. We've had people asking about audiobooks, and we're going to do all of it now. My attitude is, it's not like I had a bad attitude before. I just kind of thought I'm just going to leave this package out on the door. But now we're actually treating it like a business. And again, that's all thanks to you. So let's get rolling here because I got to be out here by 7:30. It's 6:19. Maybe a little bit later. All right, here we go. Matt Walker says, The last episode of Trifecta was as touching and as emotional as anything I've seen in a long while. Sure, Right Angle is continuing, and I do love the new show, but it felt like there was more than just the end of an internet show there. It's clear you, Scott, and Steve consider each other as brothers, and that's part of the reason the show is just so damn good. On a broader note, though, I have to ask, have we indeed lost? Is it, in the sense that I'm asking here, really over or close to it? I'm not going to repeat what I just said about Scott and Steve and I on Right Angle. I can see how people would think that that closing PJTV was, a retreat or a loss, and you know what? It's certainly a loss. It's a business that that has been exceedingly good to me, and opened up a whole bunch of new talent, and they made a decision, a financial decision, I assume, although I don't know, and there it is. The reason I wanted to take that question is very kind things to say about Trifecta and stuff, but the question is it lost? Are we losing? Is it over? Is it winding down? I know a lot of people feel about that about the country, but it's not. We lost an outlet, and we gained an outlet, and we're going to keep gaining outlets, and we're going to keep getting more resources, and I think we'll be more efficient with the resources than we were back at the old company. I know we will be. We have to be. They had a staff at PJTV, had a staff of 20. It's me and Carla right now, and we're picking up another part-time editor and so on. But I don't want people getting discouraged. Now, and forget about me and forget about PJTV. You have to understand, Matt, that discouragement is their ultimate goal. That's really why they do what they do, is to get us so discouraged that we just give up. We just, I did a members-only Nexus report on the website, and one of our Trifecta, sorry, it's going to be a habit to break. One of our Right Angle segments was on Facebook suppressing conservative stories. And I mean, you have to really think about that to realize just how subtle and how awful it is when your friends post something that is a conservative angle on anything, and it starts to go viral and people start sharing it. Facebook steps in there, according to these people that were responsible for that job, and suppresses it. So it's a miracle that we're in the game at all. And we each team, the good guys and the bad guys, has a unique advantage and a unique disadvantage. So I'll tell you what I've said on a couple of speaking engagements. I got a bunch of those to post, by the way. And I'll talk about our disadvantage first. Our disadvantage is we can never beat them. They can beat us, but we can never beat them. And the reason we can't beat them is because, in terms of the kind of victory we had over Japan, let's say, the reason we can't beat them is because entropy is on their side. It's easy to sell, it's easy to give away free candy. It's harder to sell vegetables. Entropy is on their side. People, as a general rule, would rather be secure, what's the word I'm looking for? Comfortable. They'd rather have the uncertainty removed than be free and do better. It's getting worse and worse every day. Selling people the idea, we'll take care of your health care, we'll take care of your housing, we'll take care of your food, we'll take care of all this stuff, we'll take care of your college education, all that other stuff. It's very, very difficult to do things on your own. The next firewall I'm probably going to shoot tomorrow, the next day, is called Why Bernie's Free Stuff Isn't Free. But Bernie, for example, can promise free college education, and what's that mean? Does it mean that the professors are going to go in and teach for free? Does it mean that the electric company is going to supply free electricity to the university? No, of course not. When Bernie says free college education, he means that it's going on the government tab. The students don't have to pay for it. And then I say to the students, okay, well, since it's not free, and since the government's subsidizing it means that tuition rates have skyrocketed, who do you think is going to pay for your free education? And there's silence. And then I say, you are going to pay for your free education. You're going to pay for your free education for the rest of your life. You're going to pay for your free education in higher tax rates, which means less money for you to do what you want to do. You could have paid off your student loans in 2, 3, 5 years, whatever, but you're going to be paying for those loans for the rest of your life. And you're going to be paying for them in terms of the debt, because the debt is not something that can just go away. I need to talk to, I mentioned this earlier, I want to talk to a couple of financial guys, because I don't know the answer to this at all. But I want to know what the end game is on this debt. I want somebody who really understands the big picture economy to tell me what happens. If the debt continues to get bigger, and it's going to, Does there come a point when we're in default? If we're in default, what happens then? What happens to the world economy? My inclination would be to say that it all collapses and we're back to, like I like to say, like we're roasting rats on spits over burning tires in the streets. I don't know. Maybe you can keep printing money forever. I don't know. But when I say that we can't ever beat them because entropy's on their side, they've got a downhill walk. We've got an uphill walk. Everything they try to sell is easier to sell than what we have to sell. And I said before and say it again, Russ never sleeps. You go out and mow the lawn. The second you put your lawnmower away, the grass starts growing again. And so our unique disadvantage is that we can never win and go home. We have to win every day. We just have to push the boulder up the hill every day and understand that it's our lot that's what we do. That's our job. We wake up the next morning, the boulder's at the bottom of the hill again. So we see the same problems we've always seen, not only in this country, but throughout history, and we have to go out and fight them and deal with them again. So that's our problem. That's our unique disadvantage. Their unique disadvantage is everything they say is essentially a lie, and so they have to paper up all of the windows and no signal can get out. They can't teach anything about the history of sociology or history of America. They can't teach anything about economics. They can't let anybody's other opinions get in there, because if anybody comes in and starts speaking sense to these people, they start to, you can see them, you can watch the gears turning in their heads. It's got to be terrifying for them, the fact that we are in fact the light of truth, and a little candle will light up the inside of the Superdome. You can't project darkness. You can't build a big darkness projector and darken a spot in the center of a lit stage. You have to remove the light, and light is pernicious and it sneaks through. The signal will get out, and we genuinely have that on our side. When I say that they've got to keep the light out, it's really that true. I found this both at the high school and at the college. I would go up there, and my experience has been, and I expect will continue to be, I do 5 minutes on what I believe, and then I take questions, because if I just did the speech that I do for the Tea Party groups or Republican groups, they'll just roll their eyes and snort and do all their virtue signaling and snicker and all the rest of it, and they won't listen to anything. They'll just be thinking about what they will say, what they would say in response, or what they would say during questions. It's all they think about. So I said, well, let's just cut to the chase. I don't want them on the defensive. Put me on the defensive. I'm good on the defensive. And what you find is that they ask questions, and then they expect you to answer in the way that their cartoon image of you would answer. Okay, so you ought to line them up against the wall and shoot them all. Black people, let them starve. Screw them. If they don't get a job, that's their problem. That's what they're expecting to hear. And when they don't hear it, that alarms them. And furthermore, when the person responds with a plan that's compassionate and would actually work, then they're mystified. And if you throw some humor in there, then they're absolutely demolished. So yeah, I had an event at Cal Poly. I don't know if I told this before. I don't think I did. And there was one kid in there, you could just tell, he came in barefoot. He had this giant white kid with this blonde hair, out to here. And we were talking about, whether or not, I said basically the reason that the CEO is worth more money than the people that employ him is that the CEO can do the job of the person in the insurance company. If the CEO can do the job of the person in the cubicle, but the person in the cubicle can't do the job of the CEO. And he had a big argument about this back and forth. We were talking about engineering students, and I cracked out my oldest joke ever, my favorite joke. I just modified it. Usually I say it's about pilots, but I said, hey, he's talking about engineering professors being able to be deans of the school. And I said, no, being a dean is a social skill. Being a dean is rubbing elbows and shaking hands and smiling and raising money. It's the complete opposite of what an engineering professor does. So I said to the guy, look, I know engineering professors, and so do you. And the one thing we can agree on is this: what do engineering professors use for birth control? And there's silence. Their personalities. And the room got a laugh, and that kid started laughing, and then he kept laughing. He couldn't stop laughing. This is a great joke, especially for engineering professors. And I'm not saying that particular guy got converted, but I will tell you this. You could see the gears turning. And I heard feedback on the high school we did where they said, no, you're the best speaker we've ever had. We have one every week. And everybody's talking about it, and we want you to come back and do a day. And that actually works. So, in answer to your question, Matt, it's not over. We have to play where our strengths are, and our strength is let's just get out there and tell the truth in a way that's accessible to people. And the first way you can make that is to get them out of their trenches, get them on the attack. When you go in and lecture somebody for 45 minutes against things that you're contradicting their belief. They get in their foxholes and they start digging, and they're ready to defend their position. Not just like, well, come on, you guys come at me, and it works like a charm. So I don't want anybody to feel like it's going to give up. We're never going to give up. We're just going to get up every day and do what we have to do. We don't have to save the country forever. We just have to save it today. Matthew Lloyd asks, third time's the charm, Bill. Thanks for taking my Star Citizen question a few weeks ago. I wanted to let you know, and the other Strata Loungers know, that there's a Stratosphere Lounge organization in Star Citizen now. We're all waiting for you to pick up the game, maybe after the election. Once you do, please know that the group is waiting for its fearless leader, Skid, to lead us to adventure. It's very kind. In the meantime, would you mind mentioning this organization during the show tonight so that other Strata Loungers know where to go to join? The group can be found by searching for The Lounge in the organization section of the Star Citizen website. Now, I didn't do that as a PSA, although I'm usually happy to do PSAs. I did it just to say that, for those of you that are not familiar with it, Star Citizen is an online role-playing game. It's a bit like Traveler, except you get to see everything. It's a gigantic universe, and pretty much everybody in the universe is an actual player, and you can have pistol fights. You can walk in your ship, pick which do you want to sit at the bridge, do you want to sit at the top turret, you fly, you go trade, you open fire, whatever. And the reason I keep bringing up Star Citizen, or at least the reason I'm happy to bring up Star Citizen, is I have a mortal fear of Star Citizen. I really do, because I've seen the gameplay stuff, and I'm deeply concerned that if I ever got that thing installed on my computer, I just wouldn't leave. I'm older now than I used to be. I would do some, and then I'd come home. But that was my dream for... Well, once I got old enough to realize we're not actually going to Mars, then I started thinking about how you could do this on an Apple II, Apple IIe. How could we have a world where everything's connected to everything else, and everybody gets to do what they want to do, and it's not, and of course, needless to say that technology wasn't there. But this is a spectacular game. And if you want to just see it, go to YouTube and look up Star Citizen. But those of you who are players, probably not too many of you, but those of you who are, if you go into the organization section in Star Citizen, which I don't know what it is, but I'm sure you do, just look for The Lounge, and you'll find some other Strata Loungers there. And I will tell you one thing, somewhere in here, I am going to take some time, I'm going to get on that thing, and I need to go out and just have some fun. That and Falcon DMS, what is it? There's a Falcon 4 mod that is so realistic that the Falcon flight simulator is just tremendous. I don't want to install that either, because if I do, I'm never going to leave. But yeah, anyway, so much for that. Chris Taylor says, do you think that some of the zealous Trump support coming from your area is due to people who hope to get the fiscal side of conservatism, but also get someone who supports gay rights and is not anti-abortion, i.e. has New York, if not Hollywood, social values? I got a lot of questions about Donald Trump, and I'll try to just do a little Trump beat here and try and encapsulate all of this. I know there's never Trump people. I know there's never Trump people watching right now. And I know that some of my friends, who are some of the smartest people I know and some of the most decent people I know, are never Trump people. I cannot and will not go into that camp, because when you say never Trump, never Trump versus who? Never Trump versus who? I mean, you can say, okay, not Trump over Hillary Clinton, but, to say never? No. Look, I see the problems with Trump, and I understand the argument against Trump, and I understand that a lot of... well, first of all, he's not a conservative. I don't think anybody's going to give us a fight about that. But the argument is that he's done a lot of things that they find morally reprehensible, that he's going to take us just a lambasting, and we don't want it on our plate. And even if he wins, we don't want what he would do on our plate, because it's not conservatism. And all of this makes sense to me. I get it. I do. And when it comes time to make this moral decision, I still come down to this. If it is Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton left 4 people to die in Benghazi, and then she lied to the American people, said it was a filmmaker. That filmmaker went to jail for a year. That person, no. I understand that Donald Trump's got a lot of problems. I have a lot of problems with Donald Trump. As far as I know, he hasn't had people killed like that. And, I don't know. I've said many, many times before, I think this is really true, Donald Trump is the destroyer. He will fight back against Hillary Clinton. He has already taken Bill out of the game. He took Bill out of the game at the beginning of the primary season. Hillary, you don't get to play he took the woman card out of the game too. You don't get to play the woman card. You've destroyed the lives of women who your husband assaulted or practically raped. You don't get to come out here as a defender of women. So it'll be nice, at least it'll be nice, if it is in fact Trump versus Clinton, it'll be nice to see at least a Republican candidate who fights back, personally. So there's that. I have seen so much animosity from Trump people when we did the final trifecta episode. The one thing, it was either there, I think it was there. It was like cucks, for cuckolds, cuck-conservatives. Who the hell are you to say that, Who the hell are you to tell us that we're cuckolds, me and Steve Green and Scott Ott? We've been out here fighting for these principles for 8 years now, and we put our name on it. And these are principles. And so I don't think we get to be called, establishment rhinos when we've been doing the fighting out there in public, and you're sitting there anonymously in your basement someplace throwing darts at people who are on your same team. So there's some nastiness out there, and that's one of the things I find most alarming about Trump is his supporters. I felt this way about a lot of Ron Paul supporters too. There's an awful lot about Ron Paul I liked and a fair amount I didn't like, but Ron Paul's supporters were just so nasty. They were just so aggressively nasty to even, especially almost to people on their team. It's like, I don't get it. In any event, I cannot let that woman sit in that chair. I just can't. And I think that the equation that Trump voters make, and that I'm becoming considerably more familiar with, is the idea that he is in fact the destroyer, and he's just simply going to go in there and destroy the system, and we get what we get after that. The system is so messed up that it has to be destroyed. Donald Trump has done one thing that, it's a lot of things in this one thing, but he's done one thing that I think is invaluable to this country. When he brings issues to the table, should we put a stop on Muslim immigration? Should we build a border wall? These things weren't even discussed before. They weren't even on the table. And he brings them on the table, so now we're talking about them. I don't know. And people say, well, so are you're definitely, now you're pro-Trump? I don't know yet. I don't know. I got a feeling I'm going to vote for the Republican. Donald Trump may do or say things that make me change my mind, in which case I'll vote for the Libertarian or something. But I don't know yet. I'll tell you this. When I weigh the thing that offended me most about Donald Trump versus the thing that offends me most about Hillary Clinton, they're not in the same league. I think the most offensive thing to me that Donald Trump said was when he basically said Bush lied, people died, and said the Iraq war was a mistake and it was about oil, and that we knew it, that there were no WMDs there, and we did it anyway. I found that absolutely reprehensible. But I don't find it as reprehensible as watching four guys fight and die over a 6-hour period and telling the helicopters to shut down. I don't see those things as morally equal. I don't know. A lot of people say if he's the president and this whole thing comes down anyway, they don't want a Republican with their name on it. My feeling is certainly the conservatives get to say, hey, it's not our guy. So all I want to say really in conclusion about the Trump thing is this. I cannot say a never Trump, and I can't say an always Trump until we get there. There's still a lot of time. We got to see what's going to happen. But if it came down to the devil we know versus the devil we don't know, you're supposed to take the devil you know. But in this particular case, I don't see how we can do another 4 years, and it'll only be 4 years. Hillary's not going to be reelected. We should have won this one in a cakewalk. But I cannot see how we could do another 4 years of this triangle where the Democratic Party commits all of this acts of corruption and intimidation, like the email server thing and weaponizing the IRS, and then it goes over to the news progressives in Washington, and they basically say, we're going to cover stories that are bad to Republicans, and we're going to not only not cover stories that are bad to progressives, we're going to suppress them. We're going to say that they didn't happen. And then that goes down to Hollywood, and then Hollywood picks the villains and picks the heroes. based on their progressive things. And these three things go back around, around, and around, and around, and around, and around. This has to be destroyed. We can't even get arguments on the table if it's not destroyed. Hillary Clinton is the embodiment of this. So, yes, he concerns me enormously. Enormously. But so does she. I don't know. We'll see. Mitchell Devine writes, "Hi, Mr. Whittle. This will be my first Stratosphere Lounge watching live, and I can't wait." Thank you very much, Mitchell. It's good to have you here. My question is, when arguing with progressives, the basis of their rebuttal is that of social justice. How can conservatives repudiate this unsubstantiated sanctimony and facade of well-being? That's a great question. One of the things I've been saying forever is that the coin of the progressive realm, the thing that drives them, is unearned moral superiority. It's the unquenchable desire to appear better than other people and smarter than other people, but mostly better, mostly morally superior. There's a much better term that came out lately, and it's virtue signaling, and I think virtue signaling, the first time I heard it, I said that's a perfect expression. You have to understand, I think, that if you try to get into the psychology of these hardcore progressives, you got to think about this. They're not allowed to compete. Making more money than somebody else is not on the table for them. Living a better life with a nicer car or a nicer house is not on the table for them. And yet, every human being has a sense of social status, and they want to show their social status. But as progressives, they can't do it through money, and they can't do it through achievement because they're too lazy or they're too stupid to go out and achieve things. So how do they get a sense of their social position and social rank, and how do they climb through the ranks? And they do it through virtue signaling. They do it to see who can show. They think it's to show conservatives. It's not. It's to show each other. It's like women saying, "What do you think of of these new earrings or these shoes?" And most guys go, "Oh, they're very nice." It's like, wouldn't have noticed it. A lot of times, I think women dress to impress other women, and they say they're doing it for the men, but the men don't really notice it or either much care. So these progressives are doing their virtue signaling thing, and so it's a question of who can top each other. So to answer your first part of your question, Mitchell, is you got to understand why they do what they do, and if you understand why they do what they do, then you can understand a way to beat them. So anytime you hear any one of their arguments, you have to go for the virtue signaling and the unearned moral superiority. And then you have to show that they're hypocrites and that we are actually better at the moral case. They used to make an emotional argument, and then we would reply with facts and figures and history. I don't do that anymore. It's a waste of my time. They just don't care. They would rather be feeling good about doing bad than feeling bad about doing good. So I hit them where they live. I hit them where they're weak. I go right to their virtue signaling and their unearned moral authority. I drive a Prius, and you drive a Camaro. And then I will say, okay, let me make sure I understand this. You drive a car that gets 34 miles per gallon, and I drive a car that gets 26 miles per gallon, and you're saving the planet, and I'm having our children burn. Is that right? Is that what you're saying? Even if you drive 2 or 3 times further than me every day? Even if you're putting out more carbon, you're a better person because your car gets more miles per gallon than mine does? How do you ring that? What is it about third world people, about brown people, that you hate so much? Why do you hate brown people as much as you do? Because you're obviously determined to make sure that all the brown people in South America and a lot of the black people in Africa, they're never going to have a chance to get into the kind of civilization that we have, because you're not going to let them have any energy, and you're not going to let them have any industry. You're not going to let them have any capitalism. You love the idea of the natives in the Amazon running around with a banana a banana leaf around their waist, and you're mortified when you see them wearing Western clothes like shorts and T-shirts. And yet you've never had to go around wearing a banana sling, and you've never had to realize how comfortable cotton really is until you've had to wear something that's made out of tree bark. So why do you hate these people so much? And then you've got them. You've got them. You kick them right in their moral signaling. When people were talking to me about Obamacare recently, I said, let me ask you something. Why is it that Democrats hate people so much and love cars so much? Now, see, when you say something like that, they literally do that Star Trek Norman coordinate kind of thing, and smoke tendrils start coming out of their ears. What do you mean? The Republicans are the ones who love cars, and that's the Democrats who love people. No, Why do the Democrats hate people so much and love cars so much? What do you mean? What I mean is, I'm a person, if I want to get insurance, I have a choice of 3 plans. They're all overpriced. The deductibles are so high that it's not insurance. A $5,000 deductible is not insurance for most people. Most people can't make a $5,000 deductible. So I have a choice of 3 things on this government market. I have 3 choices and they all suck. That's because I'm a person and the Democrats hate people. That's why they passed Obamacare. But my car, on the other hand, my car has hundreds of choices. My car can decide whether or not it wants to have a high deductible, low deductible. My car can decide how much coverage it's going to have. My car can decide what kind of payments it wants. My car has hundreds of people competing for it because my car is old enough. Apparently, my car is mature enough and human enough to make a decision. My car decides whether or not it wants the uninsured motorist coverage. And my car is allowed to decide what degree of coverage it wants because Democrats love my car much more than they love me. I have a choice of 3 things. My car is a choice of hundreds of things. So why is that? Why do you hate people so much? Got to know your stuff, though, Mitchell. You know, you get into the race issues and you start saying things like, see, when they talk about race and they talk about, conservatives being racist, it's like, look, the Democratic Party not only was the party of slavery in the Civil War, yeah, but they changed sides. Really? Okay. The Democratic Party today is the largest slave-holding organization on the planet. There's 30 million people that they hold in slavery. And now we're not talking about plans and we're not talking about welfare. We're talking about the immorality of keeping an entire section of the population enslaved for the purposes of their political power. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Jesse Jackson and Sharpton and all the rest are willing to condemn an entire race of people to perpetual slavery in order to stay in political power. They will give them crap phones and crap cars and crap transportation, crap housing in exchange for the vote. They work on a vote plantation, and they've been utterly dehumanized by this dependency. You basically, the Democrats sit there on a street corner at elementary school and say, "Here, kid, here's some crack. No, the first one's for free. Just see what you like." They're going out there and they are making people addicts to their entitlement, and they don't care that this destroys their lives. They just want the political power so they can travel in big jets and limousines because they're not smart enough or hardworking enough to go get these things on their own. That's another thing you need to understand about them, Mitchell. The reason they want political power is because they want the same things that rich people do, but they don't want to work for them. So if a guy's got a private jet and travels around with a chauffeured limousine, but he produces a job that pays 50,000 salaries, he's earned his limousine. On the other hand, somebody like Sharpton or somebody like Joe Biden or whatever, they want to ride in limousines and private jets too. What have they produced for people? Nothing. They've taken stuff from people. They just produce drag. They're just slugs. They're barnacles. So you got to hit them right where they live. You just absolutely have to hit them right where they live. And I don't take it from them. And what you'll find is, if you really want to start arguing with these people, you have to look at how they behave versus what they say they do. And that's where you can really pin them to the wall. Because if you look at their behavior and present their behavior back to them, that drives them nuts. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I covered this ground quite a bit, but just as one example, one guy, a progressive kid, said to me once, you can't possibly defend the idea that a guy could have 3 houses, 5 houses. That's disgusting. I mean, you can't live in 3 houses at the same time. There are homeless people in this country. How can you possibly defend that kind of wealth and that kind of heartlessness? And I said to the guy, look, dude, how many songs do you have on your phone? Why do you want to? Just tell me. I don't know, 750? Okay. Do you listen to all 750 songs at the same time? Couldn't you get by on 50 songs? Every song, round numbers, costs about $1 to download. Why couldn't you have downloaded 50 songs for yourself and sent $700 to needy people so they could pay their rent and get them, educations and all the rest of it? And that's when the smoke starts coming out of their ears, because they know that there's no response to this. You basically say, you are doing the exact same thing as the guy who's got the 5 houses. You are spending money on yourself for things that you want. He's got more money than you do, but he's doing the exact same thing. You could be taking the money that you spent on these songs. You'll never listen to all of these songs at the same time, and you probably haven't listened to many of them for many years. You could have taken that money and helped poor people with it, but you didn't. You used it selfishly for songs that you don't need. And then you say, I don't want to be living in a world where some guy you don't know can tell you how much music you can have on your iPhone. And you shouldn't want to live in a world like that either. But your behaviors are exactly the same for the exactly same motivation. You're taking your money and you're spending it on what you want to for yourself. And then they're done. I could hammer this one all day, but I think that's probably enough of an answer. Hope it gets us started there, Mitchell. Good to have you here. Dave Olson, our old friend, says, I used to feel better about that dwindling number, but then Trump, sometimes he says things that make me do the happy dance. The rest of the time I want to punch him in the swimsuit area. What's a patriot to do? And I realize, you know what, I've talked about Trump enough tonight. Dave, hopefully you got your answer out of the earlier stuff there. Randy Schnickel asks, do you get the sense that the reason why box office writers have superheroes fighting each other is because they're trying to plant the idea that there are no good guys and bad guys? That's a compelling explanation, but I think a better reason is that it's the heroes that bring in the money and not the villains. Nobody really goes to watch Spider-Man to see, Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. They go to see the superhero. The superhero's attractive and interesting and cool. People go to see Captain America. They don't go to see who's Captain America's fighting. So from an economic point of view, you need a villain. Every story needs a villain. And if the villain is boring, let's not even say boring, non-commercial, then think about the benefit you get by having one of the heroes be the villains. So now you're going to go watch Captain America fight Iron Man, and you're going to go see that movie because if it was Captain America fighting, the Tin Man, it wouldn't be as interesting. Actually, it'd be much more interesting. But so I think they're putting these superheroes in against each other simply because they get to double up, right? I mean, you got a Batman movie, you got a Superman movie. All right, the Superman movie does does well. The Batman movie does well, but Batman and Superman in the same movie fighting each other. My God. Turned out that movie was a piece of crap. I did not see it, but I have no desire to go. I've heard nothing but awful things about it. So that, I think, is the main reason. Now, with that said, superhero movies are an exception to the norm of Hollywood because the superheroes come with a history. I mean, Captain America comes with a history, and so does Superman, for that matter. They can't really invert them. They can't make Captain America a communist. They can't do it all in one shot anyway. They can probably steer him that way over a course of several years. But the same thing is true for Superman. I mean, Superman, is Superman. And this is why the previous Superman Returns, not Man of Steel, the one before that, with Brandon Routh, they literally say, what does he stand for? He stands for truth, justice, all that stuff. Oh, really? No American way anymore? No, it didn't appeal to worldwide audiences. See, they're starting to turn the corner on that guy. But Captain America says things that please Americans, and it makes $500 million. And so they eat it. Hollywood eats it. They eat the fact that he's a pro-American guy. They eat the fact that he's not the communist that they want him to be. And not to belabor this point again, but when you get right down to it, I'm becoming more and more clear on this every day. Any storytelling is fundamentally conservative. Any storytelling. Liberals, conservatives, progressives, Republicans, Democrats, these are terms that change over time. But what doesn't change over time is your fundamental orientation towards society. And that can be boiled down as, are you an individualist or are you a collectivist? Oh, I'm sorry, Mitchell mentioned social justice earlier. I'm an individualist. I don't believe in social justice. I believe in individual justice. In other words, if a person was held in slavery, that person should be liberated, and then reparations should be taken from the person that held them in slavery and make an effort to make that person whole again. That's justice. And you can apply that sense of justice to every single slave or every single person who's been harmed. Every single person who's been harmed as an individual has a right to redress. They have a right to stop being harmed, and they have a right to reparations or whatever they can do in order to be made as whole as possible. That's why when a guy's imprisoned unjustly for 25 years, the state owes him a huge hunk of money, and it's not enough, but yeah, we did do something to make up for this wrong that's been done. So social justice warriors, the idea of a social justice warrior is we're going to punish a white person for something that his 7 generations back, grandfather might have done. Most of the people in this country descended from the North, and most of the people in the Confederacy did not hold slaves. So the chance of any individual white guy walking down the street being the son of a slave owner or daughter of a slaveholder is pretty thin. But we're going to punish all white people for something that happened 7 generations ago. And likewise, we're going to give to black people reparations from 7 generations ago. And that's not social justice. That's just new injustice. You're saying to these white kids, you can't get into these colleges because we've set aside these quotas, and then you're saying to black kids, you're entitled to this because of slavery, and it's just nonsense. And if you really want to get people, again, if you want to get that moral argument done, basically the way you can corner these people is to create use their logic. If you're trying to tell me that white Americans 150 years after slavery owe black Americans who were not held as slaves, their mothers weren't held as slaves, or their grandparents, or their great-grandparents, or their great-great-grandparents, or the rest of it. If you're telling us that we owe them this debt from back in 150, 200 years ago, then say, okay, well, if we owe black people reparations for the 200-300 years of slavery in America, don't black people owe Jews reparations for the hundreds and hundreds of years that the Egyptians kept Jews in bondage? Yeah, but that was a long, long time ago. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So why aren't black people paying reparations to Jews? Well, they aren't descended from me. Exactly. Correct. Yes, precisely. I mean, I'm one of those people that a social justice warrior would say has an obligation to black people. My grandfather came over here from England in 1915, well after slavery was abolished. My mother's a British subject to this day. So the British fought the wars that stopped slavery, and the slaves were captured by other blacks and all the rest of it. But you have to understand, again, I know I'm digressing, I'll come back to that previous question, but he did mention social justice. Social justice warriors are not really interested in this. They are interested in showing themselves and each other how good they are. And that's why you get these kind of things where people would say, if somebody attacks me in an alley and I had a gun and I shot him, I'd be depriving him of his civil rights. They actually believe it. They wouldn't believe it if they were actually being attacked, but they believe it now. It's mental illness. It's mental illness. There's something fundamentally wrong with these people. I don't feel guilty for things I didn't do. And people say, well, you benefited from this because of your whiteness at this, the black people built this. No, it's not true. Black slaves or it certainly ran the economics of the plantation society in the South, but that cotton economy based on slavery burned down when the South burned down in 1865. Everything this country was built on, their black people helped build this country. They're 10% of the population. They helped build this country, but they did it as free people for salaries, just like everybody else. So, where do these reparations end? Do the Belgians owe reparations to the people in the Belgian Congo, the million people that they exterminated? Why are we the ones who are selected for this? Then you realize it's not about justice. It's about punishment. It's about power. Mitchell, it's about power. They want power over you. They all want power over other people. That's what's wrong with them. That's what's wrong with them. I got a message saying it's something attempted to start recording. It looks like our recording counter is still going, so I'm gonna just assume that everything's in one piece here. So yeah, it's that unearned moral support, superiority, virtue signaling. Go right there. You can't lose. Back to the question we were at before. The superheroes thing. I think I pretty much covered that too. Okay, Nathan Stanley asks, Mr. Whittle, call me Bill, please. As a young, forward-thinking conservative, how can I best influence those around me? As a true conservative, I have no interest in politics, and I also don't plan to enter the world of media. I know the importance of marketing conservatism in the culture, making it cool, sexy, etc. But in my eyes, it is best to live out my principles in an appealing way and let others come to their own conclusions. Is there anything else that can be done other than my BillWhittle.com membership? Thank you very much. Thoughts? Any other strategies? I said before, we can't beat these people because Russ never sleeps, and they never sleep. For progressives, politics is everything. And when I say everything, I mean it's everything. Politics is their job. Politics is their hobby. Politics is their religion. Politics is where all their friendship are. Their friends are, their friendship is. Politics, politics, politics. Why are they so addicted to politics? Because politics gives them the power and the money that they could never go out and get on their own. You just have to understand that. It's about money and power that they could not get on their own. It's much easier to tax a business than it is to run a business. You can just put whatever you want to. It's like, give me that. Bernie wants to take 97 cents on every dollar you make. What gives him the moral right to do that? Well, it's for the poor. Says who? Says who, Bernie? How do you get to decide who needs money and not? What makes you qualified? Forget the intellectual qualifications. Who do you morally think you are, taking everything that somebody makes and deciding who to give it to? You're not God. Stop acting like one. You're just an old man who's never had a job a day in his life. You're not qualified morally or intellectually to make these kind of decisions. It's robbery. Call it what it is. You just want some power because you've never worked a day in your life. Okay. And back to this, I'm kind of getting to your point here. One of the things that I heard a lot of in one of these schools was somebody said, a CEO makes $5 million and most of his workers make $50,000. And is it fair that a CEO would make 1,000 times more than his workers? And I said, well, is it fair that LeBron James gets paid more than the worst person in the NBA? And everybody said, yeah. Why? Well, because he performs better. Why does that mean he should get paid more? Well, because people sell more tickets to watch him. Yeah, okay, great. He's worth more money. We can agree on this. Why is it okay for Beyonce to make $30 million and not give a penny of it to anybody else? She probably has a staff of 2 or 3 or something. But a guy who makes $5 million running a company that's 50,000 people in it, and they're all getting paychecks and they're all going home with their livelihood. Why is that bad? They can't answer these questions. They've never heard them. They've never heard them before. They've never, ever heard them before. They've just never have, Nathan. And that's why, the messaging is so important. But when I say they never sleep and that politics is their life, their message is going out there all the time. And we don't have to match their message in terms of duration or breadth of exposure because we have light on our side. We don't have to unpaper all of the windows. We just have to tear a hole in one of the papered up windows and let some light in here. And the more light that comes in, the easier it is to tear more of these things down. So look, if your question is, I want to just go off and be a businessman, lead my own life by my own principles, how can I help the conservative cause? Then I would say go out and make a ton of money, which is certainly you're right. Keep virtually all of it, but spend some of it on helping people that are doing the messaging because, and you have, and I'm very grateful, because they do. They will go and make money in Hollywood, movies in Hollywood. For example, Redacted. I mean, Redacted was a just stick it to George Bush, make the military look bad, make the country look bad. It's directed by Brian De Palma. Probably cost several $7, $8 million. It made $25,000 domestically. That's total gross take in the entire country. And the people that put up the money for that didn't expect that this film was going to make them rich. They prepared to lose their money. And they're prepared to lose their money because the progressives know, look, if we spend some money now, we're going to get all the money. We're going to take everything. We're going to take 97% of the people that have stuff because they work for it. And so you have to understand that the left is putting resources into this all the time. And we're not. It's incredible to me, and not just to me because obviously I have BillWhittle.com, but I've talked to guys that have done fundraising for me, for messaging, for other things, for getting out there and trying to win this fight. And they hear their friends sending them emails going, my God, the country's going down the toilet. What can we do? If there's only something we can do. We said, well, here's something you can do. You can donate some money to these guys. They're having an effect. Nothing. They don't get anything. What's the return? The return is you may get to keep some of your money. If we lose this fight, you're going to lose everything. They're going to take everything you've got. I mean, they're really going to take everything you've got. And we just don't see it that way. We're businessmen. We're practical. But they understand that this is their pathway to money and power, and it's their only pathway to money and power, and so they use it. And it's the same kind of people that get into a bureaucracy. See, the reason that the left is doing as well as they're doing is because the politics gets their A-team. The smartest people on the left go into politics. Smartest people on the right go into business or the military. And that's the problem. Our politicians are our third or fourth stringers. Their politicians are their first stringers. The exception everybody talks about, of course, is Ronald Reagan. But what's interesting about Ronald Reagan? Well, the thing that's interesting to me about Ronald Reagan, and the reason I think Ronald Reagan was so successful, was because Ronald Reagan wasn't a businessman. Ronald Reagan used to be a liberal. Ronald Reagan used to be a Democrat. Ronald Reagan understood the media. People loved Ronald Reagan emotionally before he ever ran for office. He connected with people on a level that that nobody else on our team could, but that the Democrats do all the time. Bill Clinton connects on people at the level that Ronald Reagan did, and so does Obama. Hillary doesn't, but the rest of them do, and that's why they're successful, because they put their resources into it, they put their best people into it, and they connect emotionally, because they know how. And there's very few of us on our team that knows how, but some of us do, and I think that's why Andrew Breitbart was so successful. Andrew Breitbart was emotional. Andrew Breitbart was a fighter, and he was emotional. He wasn't a George Will. He didn't have the steel spectacles and the bow tie and all the rest of these affectations. Breitbart was a fighter who understood pop culture, and he saw what they were doing to him all the time. He could hear that invisible dog whistle. He was interviewed on C-SPAN once. I think his second book came out, Righteous Indignation, I want to say. And he was being interviewed on C-SPAN, and the C-SPAN guy said, now, Andrew, in your book here, it says, we read in your book that you had some problems with alcohol growing up. You want to talk about that? And anybody else would have said, well, yes, I got over it. They'd give you the answer, right? They would answer the question. But Breitbart knows the game that they play. And he just instantly said, he didn't even hesitate. He said, you've had President Obama on C-SPAN so many times I can't count. President Obama admitted that he not only took cocaine and marijuana, that he sold it. How come that never came up with him? How come it's coming up with me, but it's not coming up with him? Silence. Because he just pulled the curtain back and showed the bias. He just had that incredible ability to do it. So if you decide, look, this is not fun, this life. I do it because I need to, and I emotionally need to for the country's sake. But it's not fun to wade out into this destruction every single day, seeing, oh my God, it can't get any worse than this, and then it does. They can't get away with this, and then they do. So I completely understand the idea of, look, I'm just going to go live my life morally and decently. And listen, that's the most important thing. Everybody, we're a country made up of citizens. The better the citizens are, the better the country is. A good example is more illuminating than a bad one. A bad boss, just a complete jerk of a boss can ruin 200 people's day every day. And the converse is true. A really good man can make 200 people's day. But we do need to understand this idea about compassion, that there's nothing wrong with compassion. We're so used to being bullied into everything that they want us to do in the name of compassion, and we're so used to being told that we have to believe things that aren't true in the name of compassion, and they just use all of this compassion against us again and again and again. So we get to the point where it's like, if it's got compassion in it, we don't want it, we're going to fight it. No, what we should be fighting is putting a gun to your head and taking your charity. We need to come at these issues with compassion for our fellow citizens. It's compassionate to say that we need to stop these entitlement programs for people that are fully fit to work. It's not the mean thing to say, it's the compassionate thing to say. It's a loving thing to say, actually. It's a loving thing to say, look, you people, you Democrats, you progressives have enslaved this population, and you're trying to enslave more people every day. Just so they'll vote for you, you're ready to ruin their lives and make them into miserable, enraged children just so you can get your power and your money and your re-election. We think it's disgusting. We care much more about people than you do. If you really cared about people, you'd be doing something different. And the fact that Newark and Detroit and all the rest of these cities have been governed by Democrats for 70, 80 years and are absolute pits tells you how much compassion they actually have. I did that Most Shameful Injustice video, and there's a case, I want to say it's in, it's not Detroit, might have been in Washington, D.C., where a city elder, relatively young black man, ordered for himself, for his office, right, because he's a city elder, he's on the council or whatever. He ordered a brand new Lincoln Navigator with a black interior. and the one that was delivered had a gray interior. So he put another $1,500 rushed and bought a second one with the black interior because he had to have it now. He didn't return the first one. Now he's got two. And that $1,500 could have gone to the school system. And you just say, this just can't possibly be true. He took the money designated for the poor people in Washington. He took the money for the people he's supposed to represent as a black leader. He took school money and police money and lights, money that could go into street lights, and he bought 2 Lincoln Navigators for himself. Yes, he did. That's disgusting, isn't it? They don't have any sense of morals. They don't care. They don't care. It's amazing to me. There's this great charter school I saw in Colorado. It's in Golden, Colorado. It's called the Golden View Classical Academy. Just think about that. There's Latin on the walls. You walk in, and the first thing you see are pictures, oil paintings of the founders. And then you go into a lounge, and there's like, here are our 7 virtues that we value in the school. And there are things like discipline and prudence, freedom. And you realize that these kids are actually getting an education. And then you realize that when they put that school in, it cost the school board their jobs. The fact that they got this conservative school in there, they recalled the entire education board, replaced them with liberals, and the liberals never would have allowed that charter. The liberals would not have allowed that school to go. They'd have allowed a school that taught Marxism, no problem, but they would have used legislation to stop kids from getting a conservative education. And when I say conservative education, I just mean, look, you're going to study Shakespeare. You're going to study the American history. If that's conservative now, I guess it is, then okay. But they will try and stop it. They're papering up the windows because they cannot let the light in. These kids at that school were the most amazingly well-educated and happy kids that I've seen since I went to British schools in Bermuda. Those schools were the same kind of rigorous places where you actually got an education. And with this whole safe spaces thing and microaggressions and all the rest of this nonsense, this generation is going to be the first generation, not only in American history, but in human history, that's going to come out of college stupider than they went in. That's really saying something. Hey, look at that. I didn't even realize. Steve Darrow says, Common Sense Resistance Academy, what's in the curriculum? In TSL 36, in an answer to a question about classical music, you mentioned that you would have students be exposed to classical music in the Bill Whittle Academy. This prompted the thought, what would the entire curriculum be? That was a kind of a handy segue. I can just give you an idea. Education is not really my specialty, but for those of you that haven't heard it before, let me tell you what my schooling was like in Bermuda. When we went to school in Bermuda, public schools are actually considered, you had to pay for them. I went to 2 schools in Bermuda. First I went to a place called Warwick Academy, and then I went to Saltus Grammar School. And they're both the same, but I'll take Saltus. When you enroll into the school, they randomly divide each one of you into 4 groups. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And what those divisions are for is they put you in different houses. Houses are a really brilliant idea that I have not seen here, but it's everywhere in British schools. And for most of you, the only way you can connect to this is Harry Potter. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. I don't think I've seen 2 or 3 of the movies, tops. But for those of you who are familiar with Harry Potter, you know that in Hogwarts there are 4 different houses. What are they? Slytherin, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, and Snugglepuff or something. You get the idea. But in Harry Potter, people are kind of assigned to the house based on their emotional spin. In British schools, it's completely random. And I always liked blue. I never got a blue. I was in a yellow house in Warwick Academy, a red house in Saltus. So what happens is you come in now and your entire school is divided up into quarters. And Saltus had a house called Patterson. They had a house called, one of the houses was called Saltus. There was another one called, anyway, doesn't matter. That means that the school is in competition all the time, academically and athletically. So once a year, at least once a year, probably a couple times a year, they would say, okay, here's the rankings in history. First was this person, then second, third, all the way down to the bottom for second form or third form or whatever. And then Saltus wins this round with this many points, and Patterson is second with this many, and so on. And so you're constantly in competition and you're constantly striving to excel, and it really works. The discipline is very strict, but I was much safer feeling, felt far safer at a school where they would cane you than I did when I got to Dade County, Florida, and I was surrounded by, blacks and Cubans who've been fighting each other forever, and we're just these white kids from Key Biscayne got busted into these things, and it's like watching the lambs go down this chute. I mean, it was just horrific. And they're pulling switchblades and things like that. It's like, that's what happens when you don't have any discipline. But in terms of the curriculum, this is the one thing I did want to say. Even looking back on it, it's just hard to believe. When I went to Saltus Grammar School in probably what would have been the equivalent of 3rd or 4th grade, here's what I was taking. Because they didn't have a daily schedule, they had a weekly schedule. Instead of the same classes every day, they'd have a certain arrangement of classes on a Monday, and then a certain one on Tuesday, and so on and so on. I was taking, in 3rd or 4th grade, I guess, over here, I was taking physics, biology, chemistry, reading, history, Spanish, geography, wood shop, metal shop, physical education. That might be it. I think it was 11. There's one I'm missing. And so on Monday, you'd have double history, then you'd have one class of Spanish, and then you'd have a recess, then you'd have double math. I forgot math. Double math, and then and then double phys ed or whatever. And then they just keep moving it around. So every week you got 11 subjects. And you didn't get science, you got biology, and then you got chemistry, and you got physics. Got them all at the same time. It's incredible. Ohio Coastie there says the same thing at the Service Academy. They're divided into companies, and that competition works the same way. I never really thought about that before, Ohio, but yes, it's the exact same thing. It works really well because it keeps people on their toes, and it gives you a measure of progress. So I would just say that the academy would be classically oriented because history is the great reservoir of other people's mistakes. Flight instructors will say, kid, you need to learn from the mistakes of others because you're not going to live long enough to make them all yourself. And that's exactly right. We study what people did wrong so we don't do it ourselves. And that's important. That requires a little bit of courage and discipline to look at errors and things. But these competitions were just great. So that's what the curriculum would look like. And as I said about history is the laboratory of human experience. The problems that we face are not fundamentally different than the problems that the Greeks faced, because people don't change. The biology, the cells, the matter doesn't change. The wiring is the same. The wiring changes over hundreds of thousands of years. There's only been civilization for 7,000 years, and there's only been, really written civilization for a few hundred years in terms of the actual post-Renaissance and the Reformation and the Age of Enlightenment, all that stuff. So, there it is. It's the kind of thing where you would just study what happened in the past as a way to get some insight into what's happening now, because if you study the sequence of things in the past, you can get a pretty good idea of where we are in that sequence and what comes next. See, the great thing about history, nobody gets this. History is the way to foretell the future. I read history because I want to tell the future. And the only way you can tell the future is to find out what are people going to do in this set of circumstances. And if you find out that people in this set of circumstances keep doing the same thing every time, you got a pretty good way of knowing what's going to happen next, which is why we run around with our hair on fire. Because all the signs we're seeing here are terrible signs. They're signs of a society that's on the brink of civilizational collapse. And now that you're all cheered up and ready to go to bed, that should make you all very happy. And classical music, by the way, just since that was in there, I got exposed to classical music through that genius Jack Horkheimer, who used in the Miami Planetarium. It wasn't just classical music. We had, obviously, planetarium shows are going to have classical music in it, but I mean, I was listening to, my first album was Brandenburg Concerto. It was the first album I bought. So we would get all the classical music. This entire 8-minute segment would be, with Sibelius, Swan of Tuonela, and we'd listen to, Boccherini's Minuet, and we just got all of it. But not only did Jack put the classical music into the show, when Jack would do a show, he was a musician. Jack Horkheimer was a keyboard artist. He used to be known as Jack Foley. And so when we did the show on Buck Rogers, we did a Mars show. We just got some, I guess it was one of the Mariners. It might have been Mariner 9. Yeah, I think it was Mariner 9. Sends back some new Mars images. So the planetarium needs to do a Mars show because, we got some new Mars pictures. So most people would have done, the red planet. Here's the probe. Now, Horkheimer was such a genius. His Mars show was called Buck Rogers Right On. And what he did with that show was he showed the difference between what they thought about Mars in the days of Buck Rogers versus what we think about Mars now. And the whole thing was done as a radio show. And I remember the very first note of this thing, and I remember the music. It took me a second to cross-reference it. It's the Flying Dutchman. It's bum 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 ba bum, and then the voice of Buck Rogers comes on. All the cartoons are up there on the ceiling. So I got exposed in the walk-in period prior to the show, while people are walking into the planetarium. It's what we call the walk-in. He didn't have classical music or even 30s music. What he had all of the radio shows. So I got to listen to Alan's Alley. I got to listen to Jack Benny. I got to listen to all these guys. And then when he did a show on Child of the Universe, he talked about how the Nazis, the period between the wars, gave the birth of the Nazis, was such a nihilistic time. And so he played the music of Lotte Lenya and Kurt Weill in German. I'm listening to Kurt Weill's music sung by Lotte Lenya in German, probably recorded somewhere around 1932, somewhere in that ballpark, let's say. That's an actual education. It's an actual education. Okay, we got 2 to go, I think. Yeah, and I think we're doing it on time. We're just about right here. Matt Jarvis says, tonight is the night of unexpected segues. I'll start talking about something, and then I'll look down the question. The next question is what I just pretty much talked about. Matt Jarvis says, let me try and bait you with an astronomy question, coming off of my planetarium remarks. From what I've read, plans to deal with an incoming meteor asteroid on a collision course is where, assuming we have lead time, NASA wants to send out a probe that they can park next to it and use the mass to so slightly alter its course to miss the Earth. The Russians' plan is to send out a really big nuke and blow the crap out of it. Is either plan feasible, and if so, do you think either country have actually done anything to build a device craft to go out there and do it? No, I don't think either country's built a device to do it. I don't think any country could really do it. I don't believe we have the technology. It depends on how much time we had. I just wanted to take that question because I wanted to get to the issue of this idea of blowing up an asteroid. Most people who understand close quarters combat will tell you that if the person is unarmored as the Earth is, it's better to get shot with a bullet than it is to get shot with a shotgun. Now, at long range, you take the shotgun. Stings a little bit. But at close range, a shotgun will blow a hole in you this big. And so when you talk about blowing up an asteroid, you're talking about taking a bullet and turning it into a shotgun blast. And so the operational, the decision-making basis is how big are these pieces going to be? If you put enough pieces out there and they're small enough, every time you break something into smaller pieces, you increase the surface area. And that's what you want. Because if you decrease the mass of the asteroid so that what was once a big compact sphere is now millions of tiny little spheres, then you get 2 things that are really, really good. One of them is, since their mass is lower, the atmosphere does a better job of slowing and stopping them. And secondly, because they're smaller, they have more surface area. And again, the atmosphere gets to act on them more, heats them up, and incinerates most of them. But if you're talking about one giant bullet and you blow it up into pieces, now you've got 8 big bullets, it just means that you're just going to shoot a shotgun at the Earth. This business about blowing up an asteroid, I think, is a terribly bad idea, because the asteroid's orbit is going to intersect the Earth, and so if you blow it up, those particles are going to intersect the Earth, they're going to spread. And I don't think anybody's talking about getting them down small enough, I mean, a rock the size of this, the rock this big comes straight down to the Earth. It hits the Earth. Doesn't hit very fast because of the small mass and the larger surface area. But I don't think you want to turn it into a shotgun blast. I think it's a terrible idea. Now, a much better idea is this idea of a it's not really a probe. It's essentially you're going to fly an engine to the asteroid, either a conventional rocket engine or an ion engine or something like that. And anybody who studied orbital mechanics knows that you don't have to just move the orbital path to the left of the planet or the right of Earth. You can just make it go a little tiny bit faster or a little tiny bit slower, and it'll miss a little bit. So I think that's definitely the answer. I think what you basically need is you need a rocket with with an inverted kind of a stand on the top, and you just fly it to the asteroid, get it secured, and burn the daylights out of it, and either slow it down or speed it up enough to miss the Earth. There's certainly a way to predict the exactly correct vector that where the smallest amount of delta V will have the largest deflection in terms of where that asteroid would have gone otherwise. You just get in there and just push it. You don't have to push it very hard, and you don't have to push it very long. You can just accelerate it, slow it down, change its orbital angle by a degree or two, depending on how far in advance you do it. Now, if you find out that something can hit the Earth 30 years from now, you could send it a little ion engine, because all you have to do is just increase its velocity just a little bit over 5 years, and you miss. I think if we found out that this was going to happen, we would in fact be able to do something about it now. I don't think we have plans to do it now, but if we had 2 years, let's say, we would. I think we could do it. Now, there's a double-sided thing here. We've only probably found, it used to be 10% of the total asteroids that we know are out there. And it's probably higher now because we've done a pretty good job of actually looking for the asteroids. So the bad news is there's lots and lots and lots of pieces out there that we haven't found yet. The good news is that all of these pieces are really pretty small. If it's something of significant enough size to cause like an extinction level event, we probably know where it is. So the ones that we don't see are the ones that are a couple hundred feet across, maybe, or 10 feet across or whatever. And they're going to make a big boom like that Russian thing and come over and break some windows. But it's not the same as what we're talking about. It's not a planet-killing device. And by the way, there are no planet-killing asteroids. We've never had a planet-killing asteroid. We've had asteroids that have wiped out most of the life on Earth and reset the intelligence clock, but they've never sterilized the Earth, because here we are. Earth is a tough old baby. She will last a lot longer than you think. Okay, last question. Jonathan K. asks, in all the crazy snatches of time slices that TSL has aired amongst your chock-full schedule, to say nothing of the more formal programming with more time to prepare, I don't recall that I've ever seen you sporting even the slightest hint of stubble. I have to wonder, how often do you shave these days to achieve such a result, and have you ever had a style of mustache and or beard in the past? If you go to the About page on BillWhittle.com, it used to be there. I don't even know if it's still there. It's when we did the website redesign. When I was in college for my first year or two, I had the scraggliest beard in the world. I had an afro, a brown curly-haired afro out to here. I had an afro pick with a fist on it, and I'm not making this up, it's all true. And for a while there, I was doing that kind of Fleetwood Mac kind of groovies, real groovy kind of 79 kind of vibe, hey, mellow out, all I remember about trying to grow a mustache in my teens was that I used a lot of eyebrow pencil. My friend Fritz, who's been my best friend since we were 10, so that's 47 years now. Fritz, on the other hand, grow a full beard in 3 days. But I was never like that. So the answer to your question is I probably shave every other day. Today I am 1 day in. I shaved yesterday morning. I'm not a real hairy guy in that respect, so usually every 2 or 3 days is fine. It doesn't show up on camera. Now, that doesn't mean I shave every 2 or 3 days, but it means if I'm going to go on camera, that's what I do. Sometimes on weekends I'll go 4 or 5 days, and then generally I just do it because it's itching. It's driving me crazy. I have on a couple of occasions tried to grow a beard or a mustache, and it's not been very impressive at all. And so, it's not something I have a burning desire to do. I did when I was younger and insecure, and I had to prove something to myself, and now I don't have any real desire to do it. Funny you mentioned that too, because obviously I took the question because it's such an offbeat question. But I have these strange thoughts, obviously. That's why we're here, I guess. And when I read The Innocents Abroad, Mark Twain is not only my favorite writer, I feel like he's a personal friend. He wrote in such a way that if you had some affinity to where he was going, he felt like he was your friend. He wrote in a way that made you feel like he was telling you a story. He's just come back from touring the world, and now you're sitting down around, a couple of beers or scotches or whatever, and Mark's telling you the story. Sam Clemens is telling you what happened when he was in Italy. And one of the things that he talks about a lot in The Innocents Abroad is shaving. He constantly talks about how bad the barbers are over there. You try to get a shave, it said it was like being skinned alive, and And they're hilarious. They're actually the funniest parts of the book, I think. And so I know that Mark Twain had the thick beard, and I know that Mark Twain always had a problem with shaving because Mark Twain had real thick facial hair and dull razors, and he's in the third world. And the reason I bring that up is because on just sort of on a whim, I guess, I bought one of these Gillette. It's got 5 blades, and when they come out with one that has 13, I'll undoubtedly buy that. But it's powered. It's got a little battery in it, and when you turn it on, it vibrates, and that actually makes a difference. I find it really does make a difference. It's just a cleaner shave. But the reason I bring Mark Twain into this is I don't think I ever really shave, but it seems like every time I shave and turn on that little button, I said, number one, I live in a society where my razor vibrates and it costs $9 and it does it because it can. And that's amazing, and I just never take that for granted. I'm so happy about that. And the other thing I always think of is, I wish Sam were here, because if he were to try one of these modern gels and a really hot shower and an electric razor, not a circular razor, not one of the, because I don't find those things to be very effective, but if he were to shave with a safety razor that's got 5 parallel blades and vibrates so that it's actually loosening things up a little bit, he would say, my God, what a great country. And he'd be right. So yeah, every couple days or so. And I love little questions like that. It's just weird. Hey, look at that. It's 7:30 right on the button. I need to go. And that's almost incredible. We ended it right at that time. So just to recap, as always, I just want to thank all of our members and all of you fine people out there, members or not, all of you Strata Loungers at the hardcore of this entire thing that we have here, and couldn't be more grateful. But I would like to stress again just how grateful I am, particularly this week, as large numbers of you, well, relatively large numbers compared to what we were getting before, came over, and it means we're going to stay in business and we're going to keep growing. So if you're still thinking about it and you can, we'd love to have you. We can do an awful lot of good with that. And if you did do it, thank you. And if you can't do it, I don't want anybody feeling bad, because God knows there's been a lot of times in my life when I couldn't do anything, including pay the electrical bill. But we'd like to keep it rolling, because the more we can get, the more we can do. In any event, this would be the conclusion of Stratosphere Lounge number 119. Try and upload it right now if possible. And I got to get them updated on the website. We've got a bunch of them haven't been updated yet, so I'll see if I can worry about that. I'll try to be here next week, obviously. It's been busy, but we are starting to get it under control. I think we got some mechanical help, with the editing assistant prep kind of thing, and I think from that point we'll probably be okay. So hopefully we'll see you next week. If not, we'll see you the week after that, and we'll have more stories to tell, and hopefully we'll have more good news about the membership numbers. But right now I'm as happy and as grateful as I think I've ever been in my life, and I'm very, very, very appreciative of those of you that stepped up during these last week or 10 days, because we couldn't have done it without you, and you did it, and so we did it. And those of you who've been members before that, you're the ones that kept the lights on and put up with all kinds of delays and all kinds of other things, and just kept us going. So grateful to all of you. Anyway, that's episode 119. You guys be careful out there. Don't give up. Don't ever, ever, ever give up. That's what they want. Russ never sleeps, but neither do we. So we will see you next time. Bye-bye now.